So, well, hello everybody. I'm David, and I'm the CEO of Nanexa and have been the CEO since beginning of 2015. I've previously worked at some different companies that you probably know of: Pharmacy Upjohn, Pfizer, and Nanexa, which is a medium-sized Swedish pharmaceutical company. So what does Nanexa do then? Well, we are in the sort of drug delivery market. We have our own drug delivery technology called PharmaShell. And why it's called PharmaShell is because we do create very, very thin shells on top of pharmaceutical particles or particles of pharmaceutical substances. And we focus then on making injectables that could last for a very long time and release the API, the active substance, for a certain amount of time. That could be a week or a month or even longer, actually. And what we're trying to do is to build a company based on this PharmaShell technology and link that together with common regular pharmaceutical development and make a company, a drug delivery company, based on that into the parenteral area where we do build long-acting injectables. And long-acting injectables has the advantage of being has a better convenience for the patient. You don't need to take shots every week or every day or so. You can have it one for a month. It increases the compliance of the treatment. That is actually so that many patients, even though they have very severe illnesses, they don't comply with taking the pills every day and so on and so forth. And so having a depot formulation could really improve that quite a bit. And that could itself then make the treatment even better effect, has a better effect than the normal route of administration. And it could also decrease the side effects of the treatment. The vision of our company, we feel that we're in a stage now where we can see that we can grow to a large or medium-sized pharmaceutical company or pharmaceutical drug delivery company, I should say, that is based on this PharmaShell technology, where we do focus on parenteral administrated drugs. And we do that by combining the development into both own product projects that we run and partner-driven product projects that we also get involved in and sell the license to these companies to develop their own products. And to be able to do that, we will build a structure that will be able to take the technology into clinical studies and further on into commercial manufacturing and so on. So, and I will say we're sort of in the middle of this picture, going from the smaller size into this vision going forward. And our business model is actually based on two different steps, or two different lines, I should say. First of all, we sell license to use the technology as such, and that could be then sold to different companies for different active substances, where the partner company actually pays for the development from start and on, and we will get the revenue from licensing revenue from signing fees and milestone payments. We will get paid for the work we perform in those projects, and we will later on, when the product is on the market, we will get royalty payments on those products. The other line is the product license, and that's where we, by our own, develop a specific product based on this PharmaShell technology, take that into proof of concept in clinical studies, and then out-license it to a partner company. That line will of course we will get much bigger revenue from such a project. It's a little bit bigger risk, but it is worthwhile, I'll say, to go that route. And in this case, we will take the cost for for the development up to clinical proof of concept, and the partner company will take the project cost from that stage onwards throughout the final clinical study and the regulatory process until it gets ready for marketing. Also there we will get signing fees, we will get milestones fees, and we will get royalty on sold goods. Another way of demonstrating this or showing this is this picture where you can see that in the first line we'll get quite a bit more milestone payments. They're a bit lower than when going for the product projects, but we can get earlier revenue from that line. And actually we have already started that with the collaboration projects that we have ongoing since last year. We get some payments during 2019, and that will increase during this year. The milestone payments from the product projects will come later, but will be bigger. And then the royalty-based income or revenue that will come when the products are out on the market. But the base for everything is patents, actually. A company like ours wouldn't be anything without patents. So we have a good patent portfolio. We received patent grants in the US, actually the first day of last year. And that specific patent application, we also got a broader application granted later on last year in the US. And we also got it granted in Japan in the middle of the year about. And we have, of course, this application in other countries as well, and the process is ongoing there. We also build on continuously with more patent applications as we invent, so to say. Well, the pharma shell, then what is it? Yes, it's a it's a shell that I said that we build right on top of API particles, active pharmaceutical ingredient particles, and the shell is extremely thin. It's like 10 to 30 nanometers in thickness, and that's built with a process called atomic layer deposition. It's a process that we have borrowed from the electronics industry, where it's used quite a bit when making, screens, telephones, everything like it. And and it has been shown to be very, very good to use in the pharmaceutical industry. It's a process that can be run pretty much in room temperatures, a little bit elevated, but not high temperatures. It's a gas phase process. It doesn't involve any solvents at all. So it's a completely dry process where we don't really need to have any purification steps after the process, after the shell is made. So it's a very simple process and has a good potential to be quite cheap to use as well. What we then can offer, like I said, parenteral depots that we can control those or steer the release of API we have shown from about 1 week to several months actually. It has a very broad applicability. We can work with either very high soluble drugs, that could be a problem for many other drug delivery systems. We can also work with low soluble drugs. We can work with small molecules, and we can also work with biologics like peptides and proteins. And that is very important because the peptide and protein in business is something that's growing very, very steadily in the pharmaceutical business. And we can have control of initial release. That's the third bullet here. That's very important. Think about if you inject something that should stay in the body and be released over time for maybe 1 month or 3 months. It's very important that it doesn't release initially maybe 30% of what you have injected. So you really need to keep that at control of the initial release. And we have a very, very good way of controlling that. High drug load is something that's also important, specifically if you work with longer depots. It's important to keep the volume injected as low as possible. And we have a possibility here to work with about 80% drug load in our particles, and that's very, very high. Also, we have an advantage that we actually protect the actual drug substance when we have administered into the body. So it is protected from enzymes and so on. So it stays stable throughout the time it is in the depot. This is a slide showing a little bit of what I've said. This is results from animal studies. Rat studies where we have injected these particles subcutaneously, a suspension of these particles, and we have in the graph to the left, you can see that it's a 12-week study where we have injected 3 different doses of pharmacell-coated particles, and we have compared that. The lowest dose we have compared with uncoated particles. And you can see the red line that drops into the x-axis just within a few days. That should be compared with the lowest, I think the green line that lasts for about 10 weeks. And the only difference between those two is actually the shell material. It's a shell that is about 10 nanometers in thickness that makes such a difference. And that's quite neat, I think. Then going up 10 times in the dose, or another 10 times, you can see that even after 12 weeks, there's still remains quite a bit of API in the system, and that suggests that we actually have depots of maybe half a year or a year-long depots. The picture on the graph on the middle shows what I said about the initial release. We have possibility to control the initial release in a very good way, and you see the 2 lowest ones are suggest that we have about 2 to 6% in initial release the first 48 hours, and that is considered extremely good values. So that's really neat. And to the right, you can also see a 1-week study that we did it was with a different shell material and a different shell thickness and the way we processed it. So we got a 1-week depot in this case, and that is something that's very important to be able to show that we can also make shorter depots. And that's something that we will utilize in our own product project, Next 18, that I will talk a little bit about. Well, what has this then led to? Well, this is the project portfolio that we have right now, January 2020. In the middle of 2018, the only thing that we had was a collaboration with AstraZeneca, one of their projects. Now we have 2 projects with AstraZeneca. We have 5 other companies that we collaborate with, where they are doing so-called feasibility studies with our concept. All of them have actually been prolonged. They have gone into a deeper collaboration together with us. And many of them, as you see, are in the animal study phase. And some other ones are very, very close to entering into the animal study phase. We also, in the bottom, I just put to mark here that we also have discussions with other companies to go into these kind of feasibility studies. Now I have hopefully 1 or 2 of these will continue into product development projects within soon. And we are targeting our own project, the Next 18, to go into clinical study end of this year. A little bit about our product that we run with own money, so to say. It's improvement of a product that's already on the market called Vidasa, and the Vidasa is based on azacitidine, which is the active substance there. It's a leukemia indication, MDS. And today the patients are treated with 7 different injections 7 days in a row, and then they have a resting period for 21 days, and then they start a 7-day treatment again, 21 days rest, and then 7 days treatment. And that is, of course, cumbersome for the patients to go into the hospital 7 days in a row, actually. Every 4th week, they need to go to the hospital. And those injections, as you see, they are, if you see the red peaks, they get the subcutaneous injection of azacitidine that goes directly into the bloodstream and peaks very fast and then leaves the blood also very fast. By that treatment, they also get some side effects out of the treatment, and they don't really have the substance in the bloodstream all the time. What we will do then is to exchange those 7 injections with just one, and the substance will be released on a steady level over the 7 days. And then the next month, the patients will come into the hospital just once, get a shot or injection of Nex18, and so they will exchange the 7 with 1. And that is something that we've discussed with some of the clinicians that treat these patients groups, and they said this will be a really good product to take to the market, and it will ease up the situation for the patients quite a bit, actually. The project timeline for this project is about like this. We will do some preclinical studies this year, and we will enter into the clinical phase by end of this year. We will then continue into the phase 2 program, and after that have a product license by sometime during 2022. And then the partner will take on the project. But important to say, we will get milestone payments from that time and on. To be able to realize all these projects, we have an organization in line that is, I say, we cover all the different aspects of pharmaceutical product development in this very small but very knowledgeable organization. Value creating activities like this will continue with partner projects. We'll do our Nex18. We will actually start another product project this year. We'll develop the technology as such and start upscaling. The upscaling is quite exciting also. We have some collaboration with a really large company making equipments that suits us very well. And we will, of course, continue with our business development. And this is the last slide. We right now have a rights issue ongoing. The subscription time will end 25th of February. And we'll target 45 million Swedish crowns about. And we have folders and so on outside here that you can read more about this emission of rights. And with this, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, David. You had quite a few partnerships lined up.
Right. Yeah, I'm very excited about that because I would say last year was really a year when we really gained some interest from the industry and started all these projects. So that's really good.
And you show the timelines and so on, but seeing that you mentioned something about 1 or 2 that you're hoping for, that 1 or 2 will continue and so on. Is that a conservative hope?
You should realize that every feasibility study will not reach into product development. And since we're running, it's actually 10 different projects with these 6 partners. And I say if like two continue into product development, I think that's a good track record. If there are more, we will be fine with that as well, of course. But I wouldn't promise anything more than that.
And as far as the projects that are in collaboration or the evaluation projects starting to pay off in some way in milestones or upfront payment, when is the soonest that can happen, would you say?
Well, I'd say the soonest, I think during this year, if we enter into product development projects, milestone payments will start this year.
And like you mentioned in the last slide, you're actually going on financing round. And 40.
It's 45, yes.
45 million. Okay. And how far will that get you then?
Well, the 45 will take us through the development of and the first clinical study of Next 18. We'll start the Next 20 project. We will of course continue with our partner projects, but those we will get paid for. So those are sort of neutral when it comes to economy.
They don't add on to your burn rate.
They don't add on to our burn rate. That's how it. And we should also we're actually looking at increasing our facilities, and also the organization will bring in some more competence actually into the organization.
And looking at your slide, there was something about GMP facilities.
Yes.
You're building your own.
Right. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we're building our own GMP facility, and that's something that is critical for taking the projects into the clinical phase. We need to be able to manufacture these PharmaShell products somewhere, and since that's a unique process, we need to build it ourselves. And then, luckily enough, we are located in an area in Uppsala, the former Pharmacia headquarters and R&D area, where we actually have a good facility where this can be fitted. And so we're adjusting that facility, and now I've started to build our own quality assurance system and so on and so forth, so to be able to manufacture these in full GMP for this phase.
So we are actually inching towards the end of our time here. I should ask if there are any questions. We have a question.
Good.
You go.
Apparently the technology works neatly, as you say. I'm just wondering, you have a very many small particles with this shell around it, and something in the tissue dissolves the shell, but only some of these particles, a few of them, and then gradually it dissolves more of those particles. How come that many particles are sheltered for a while?
Mm-hmm. That is a question I also get from many of the pharmaceutical companies when I present this. Think of it as you know, even if I say that the shell thickness has a certain thickness, there is of course a spread in that thickness. So some of the particles maybe have 5 nanometers in thickness, and some have 15, and the mean is 10. So that's one thing that controls that some particles release their API prior to other particles. Then there is another mechanism actually. When you inject, like you said, very many of these particles in one injection, and then you inject it, and there is a small lump of those particles. The particles that are on the outside of that lump has a sort of a higher tendency to dissolve faster than the ones that are in the middle of that lump. So there are two mechanisms that works together to get a nice and easy release of the API. But thanks for that question. That was really clarifying. Thanks.
Thanks for a clarifying answer.
Okay.
We are going to have to say thank you to you.
Okay,
I know
thanks.
you have some material with you that you can feel free to pick up outside. Thank you very much for coming today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.